This week, I'm bringing up a new vCenter 7.0.3 server for my home lab environment. My previous few videos established some prerequisites that are important to have in place prior to attempting to install vCenter, namely working DNS, NTP, and general networking. I've chosen to do the install from Linux, particularly Fedora 35 running KDE. There's a small caveat with the install that I'll address in the video. In addition to addressing a simple installer error, I'll also be showing how to configure vCenter to use our Zential Active Directory server for authentication. Let's get started. So we can see here that I'm logged into my Zential. I have a vCenter DNS entry already set up. I've reserved my 207.7 as the IP address for it. Over in my console window, you can see that I've done an NS lookup for lf-lab-4.lab.asbuild.dev. This is the fully qualified domain name for the ESXi server that I'll be installing vCenter to. And down below, we can see that I've already downloaded the VCSA installer. Now, in order to get started, we just right-click on the ISO image and select Mount ISO. Okay, if I scroll down on the left-hand side, we can see that it is mounted now. So let's go ahead and browse there. Now, I like to use the user interface. So we'll go ahead into the VCSA-UI-installer. And then we're working from Linux, so let's go into Lin64, and we'll scroll down and see what we have available to us here. Installer-linux.desktop, and we'll try double-clicking it. Okay, now we're being prompted, what do we want to do with this file? Well, it's an installer, so let's try to execute it. Okay, so here's the vCenter Server 7 installer. We'll click on Install, and we're going to deploy a new vCenter server, so we'll just click Next. Review the license agreement. Click Accept. Click Next. Now, this is prompting us for where we want to install to. So you can see here on the left-hand side, that's what I've already done there. So let's just go with the IP address for now. And we need the username and password to log into that ESXi host. I think I got the right password in there. And we need to accept the SSL thumbprint. Okay, so it looks like I did authenticate properly. Now we need to provide a name for the virtual machine that we're installing. We're going to call it vCenter. And we need to set the root password and do a confirmation on that. Okay, and here's the error that I warned about. So we can see that it says a problem occurred while reading the OVA file. Cannot read property length of undefined. So this actually has to do with the OVF tool not being able to load up some appropriate libraries. After a little bit of research, I found out that we need a library installed called libnsl. So let's click the back button, and we'll just leave everything there. We'll go back over to our console, and we'll do an install for that libnsl. So we'll do this, sudo dnf install-y libnsl, and we'll hit enter. Okay, the library is now installed, so we should be okay. Let's try hitting next again. That's much better. Now this is a home lab environment, so I'm not going to have a lot of physical hosts. I'm certainly going to have less than 10, so tiny is appropriate here. I'll click next. Now we need to choose which data store I want to put this on, and my LF Lab 4 server has a 1 terabyte SSD in there. I want to put my vCenter on there. And I'll go ahead and do thin disk mode. So that'll do thin provisioning so that we're not consuming all the extra space. All right, network, I want it on my 207 network, so that's right. And my FQDN, my fully qualified domain name, I want that to be vcenter.lab.asbuild.dev. And the address we had was 192.168.207.7. Our subnet mask is 255.255.255.0, so it's a /24. And I like using .1 for my gateways, so there we go. And the DNS server, we're going to make sure that we use our ZenTL server, so that was the .10 address. We'll scroll down, nothing else to enter, so we'll just click Next. And if everything looks good, we didn't fat finger anything too badly here, we can click Finish. Okay, it looks like stage 1 has completed. So we'll go ahead and continue on to stage 2, but before I click the button there, you'll notice that you can see that you can also go to port 5480, that's the VAMI, the VMware Appliance Management Interface, if we wanted to go do that, but we'll just hit continue for now. We will visit the VAMI later though. Okay, for stage 2, we'll just click Next. Time synchronization mode, we do want to enable that. And we will synchronize it with the NTP servers. And again, we'll be using our ZenTL server. SSH access, I want to have that enabled so that I can get on there and make sure that the root password is set to never expire, and just do general checks if and when needed. Okay, for the single sign-on domain, I have found that it's best to just keep this as vsphere.local. Don't set this to your domain. Okay, single sign-on password. So this will be the password for administrator@vsphere.local when you log in. Okay, and we'll click Next. Customer Experience Improvement Program, I'll go ahead and leave that checked and click Next. And we have our summary, so I'll just click Finish. Okay, it looks like the server is ready. I'll go ahead and just click the link there. It is using a self-signed certificate because the vCenter server is its own certificate authority, and it will run a CA service so that as you join your ESXi host to the vCenter, it will issue and maintain the SSL certificates for those hosts. So let's go ahead and get past the warning here. And once again, we will type, "This is unsafe." There we go. Now the first thing that I want to do here is I could launch right into the vSphere client, but I want to download the Trusted Root CA certificates. So I'll right-click on that and select Save Link As. I'll drop it into my Downloads folder under vCenter CA and click Save. All right, let's go over to our downloads. Go into the vCenter CA folder, and we will extract the files. Okay, under the Linux folder, we'll find that we have two different files here. One is only 783 bytes, and the other is 1.5 kilobytes. So we will go ahead and assume that this is our certificate for the certificate authority. Now we need to go ahead and get that installed here. So I will use the browser, settings, and just type cert. And we have it here under security. There we go, manage certificates. And this is going to be a certificate authority, so we want to import that file here. And we need to change our filter here so that we can see all files. Now again, make sure you choose the larger of the two. Make sure that all these boxes get checked here. Click OK. And we can close that window. I'm going to hold down Shift and hit refresh, see whether or not that clears the error. No, it doesn't. That's fine. I'm going to right click on the Launch vSphere Client HTML5 and I'm going to say copy link address. That way I can close that tab, open up a new tab, and just paste in and go. And as you can see, we now have the lock here without the warning. And we're going to take a look at our certificate here real quick. Common name, see that the FQDN matches up with our vCenter server. And it is a CA. And it is the vcenter.lab.asbill.dev. And it's good for, looks like 2 years. Excellent. This is exactly what we want. If we think back to the installer, it did prompt for the administrator password as well as the SSO domain. So we kept vsphere.local, so we'll log in as administrator at vsphere.local. With our password there. That'll take a moment to get logged in. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and resize that. We don't need to see the time zones of my colleagues anymore. Okay, there are expired or expiring licenses in your inventory. Well, that's expected because we just installed this and we have not installed any licenses. And we won't be doing that during this video. All right, let's open up another tab here and we're going to paste in that URL. So we've got our vcenter.lab.asbill.dev, but instead of /UI, we're going to clear that away and put in :5480 so that we can load up the VAMI interface. Now, in order to log into the VAMI, you need to use root as the username and whatever you set the password for root during your install. We can see here in the VAMI, I've already got a cookie set to keep the dark mode, I believe. From the VAMI, you can do updates in the future. So when 704 or 703 update D or whatever the case is comes out, I can come in here and tell it to check updates. And we are fully up to date here. So 703 update C is the current version. Under administration, we can see that the password is currently set to expire for root in 90 days. I'm not a fan of that. I'll most likely forget and end up getting locked out and have to Google how to unlock myself. So I like to just go ahead and change this to password expires equals no. And we'll save that. Okay, syslog. I'm not running a syslog server at the moment. Backup is pretty nice. You can have this regularly scheduled to back up to an SCP server. So if you click on configure, you just specify your protocol, the server, port number, folder, subfolder, the credentials to access that server, and what kind of schedule you want to run your backups. There we go. Click on backup location information icon. You can see that it supports FTP-S, so secure FTP, HTTPS, SFTP, FTP-NFS, SMB, and HTTP. I just specify SFTP for one of my SSH servers that I use as a backup for some of my other systems. But I won't be doing that right now. I'll just click cancel out of that. Time, we want to make sure that we have this set up for our Zentl server at .10. We can see that the green check mark says that the server is reachable on the NTP port. So this is good. My time zone is set correctly. All right, this is all looking very nice. CPU is coming down off of that 100%. That was the install that ran at 100% there. All right, let's go back over to the vSphere client, and we want to get this configured to allow authentication from our Active Directory server that Zential is providing to us. But in order to do that, we first need to join our vCenter server to the domain. So let's look and figure out how to get that done. That should be under Administration and Configuration for single sign-on. Active Directory domain, we want to change over to there. And currently, we don't have it joined to AD, so we'll go ahead and click on Join AD. Now, the domain that we're going to join is lab.asbil.dev. I'm not going to specify an organizational unit. For the username and password, I will use one of my domain administrator accounts. Okay, so we have it joined to the Active Directory. Now, in order to actually get the changes applied, we do have to reboot this host. Once we've done the reboot, we can go ahead and configure our identity sources. So let's go ahead and get this rebooted. I'll come back over to the VAMI, click on Actions, and select Reboot. And click Yes. So we'll give that a few minutes, and then we'll get logged back in. Now, since I did reboot the appliance, I'm going to clear the URL here and just try to go back to UI. And when you see this no healthy upstream, this typically indicates that the services are still getting started. So we'll need to wait a few more minutes here. The next message that comes up when we try doing a refresh will be something along the lines of the services are starting. We can see here in the VAMI that we've got a lot of services that are set for automatic startup, but they've not started yet. Alrighty, finally. Okay, we can see now that the only option here is to leave AD, so that means we are indeed joined to the Active Directory domain. We see down here Active Directory, there's our OU. So let's take a look over in Zential and see if we can see our vCenter server in Active Directory users and computers. Oh, yep, there it is, vCenter, right there under computers. Okay. All right, now that it's joined to Active Directory, we can go ahead and add a new identity source so that we're able to log in using AD accounts. Okay, it looks like integrated Windows authentication will be deprecated in vSphere 7. Okay, support for continues and will be phased out in the future. Well, since this IWA is going to be phased out, let's not even bother with that. So the next best option would be Active Directory over LDAP. All right, so we need to enter in our information here for the server. Base distinguished name for users, base distinguished name for groups. I'm just going to put in my root DN here, that's the distinguished name, because I have a small enough environment that I don't really need to specify and break that out. All right, so DC equals lab, comma, DC equals asbil, comma, DC equals dev. That should do it. And we'll just paste that down here. Domain name, that should just be, what, FQDN of the domain. All right. So we want our lab lab.asbil.dev. Domain alias, that is generally going to be your NetBIOS name. So that is on a regular domain where it's just a top-level domain like asbil.dev, the NetBIOS would be asbil. But when you have a subdomain like lab on there, the default NetBIOS name is typically the subdomain name. Yes, so we will just go ahead and specify lab as our domain alias. Now the username for us to authenticate and do our confirmation, I'll use an Active Directory domain administrator here. All right, what format do they want it in? Oh yeah. Let's do like this. And we'll go ahead and specify our domain controller since we just have that one. Okay, what are we missing here? Oh, it wants it in the LDAP format. Okay, that's fine. LDAP : / and then the FQDN of our server. So let's go ahead and click add. There we go, and we will set that as our default. Okay. Okay, now that we have our Active Directory set as default, let's go back over to users and groups. And let's try changing over to local OS. Okay, that little progress circle was only showing halfway. Let's try groups. Look at that, it was cut off again. So this typically happens when the browser window is not sized big enough for the vSphere client. So let's try adjusting our width a little bit and see if that helps. Hey, look at that. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to go to the local administrators and we want to add members. So when we go to the add the members, let's make sure that we change our domain to lab.asbil.dev, and we want to search for the VC admins. There we go. So remember, I created that Virtual Center admins group so that we can use it here. So let's click save. And now that we have the VC admins group as a member of the local administrators, we should be able to log in with our VC admin account. Let's take a quick look here. lab.asbil.dev, user listings, VC admin. So we've got that account right there. All right, so let's just open an incognito window here. That way we don't have any cookies for our currently logged in session. And we'll go to the vCenter. And let's try logging in as VC admin. Now I'm not going to specify lab.asbil.dev because I think that when I set the Active Directory as my default login, it should just try that first. Was I right? Yes, I was. Excellent. Okay. All right, we can see here at the top that I am logged in as VC admin at lab.asbil.dev. That's great. Okay, so the next thing to do would be to start adding some servers to the environment. And of course, we need to get some licensing. So if you don't currently have licensing for your home lab environment, there's a few different ways you can go about getting that. One of them would be the vMug Advantage program. And with that, it's $200 per year, and you get a whole bunch of different VMware licenses. Let's take a look at this here real quick. So if you just go to vmug.com under their membership, you can take a look at the vMug Advantage membership. Now, the general membership is free, but that just gets you the user cons, virtual events, local community meetings, live and on-demand webcasts, and access to online communities. It does not give you any of the training discounts or the evaluation licenses or the discount for VMworld. So for a measly $200 a year, and let's be honest, folks, anybody watching this has some home lab environment set up. They maybe even have a gaming server, and the the video card alone in that gaming server could probably get you, anywhere between 3 and 5 or 6 years of this membership here. So the great thing about this is for only $200, you're going to get access to several different licenses of the VMware products. You'll get a pretty nice discount to attend VMworld if you plan on doing that. I mean, they are going back to in-person now. And you also get 20 to 35% off training discounts. So that can certainly be helpful if you're trying to, move up in your career, gain some new skill sets. Having access to these licenses and then getting discounted training could be very beneficial. So I would highly encourage you to consider doing that if you would like to run Virtual Center, because I think they get you quite a few different things here. Let's take a look at what exactly they give you. So let me go ahead and paste that into a new window here. Yeah, here we go. So the licenses included: storage and availability. You've got your vSAN and Site Recovery Manager. You've got vCenter Server Standard, the vSphere vCloud Suite, includes vRealize Suite 2019 Enterprise and vSphere Enterprise Plus. So this right here is ideal if you want to get some hands-on experience in your home lab environment to ready yourself for a nice job as a VMware admin. A really, really good set of software there. I'll be using a vSphere Enterprise Plus license when I do get my stuff set up. So yeah, you should certainly look into this. So again, this is $200 a year for this licensing and for the other discounts and access. Another alternative for gaining licenses to VMware products would be to become a vExpert. Now, vExpert is a pretty nice program. They do it on an annual basis, so you do have to re-up each year. And in order to qualify for that, you need to be some sort of a spokesperson, doing some social media kind of stuff, blogging, speaking events. There's a variety of ways that you can qualify for that. So just to look into that further, you go to vexpert.vmware.com. And there you go. There's the benefits. You can find out when applications are open. The applications to become a vExpert are only open at certain times of the year. So you'd want to keep an eye on that and get notified. But once you are a vExpert, you do have access to a full set of licenses for the various products. I think even more than what's available in vMug Advantage, but I'm not certain on that. Anyway, those are the couple ways that you can get licenses that would include vCenter Server. Now, if you're just looking at running some virtual machines and doing some VMs, and you're not too concerned about doing API requests and doing vCenter stuff with vMotions and all that, you're just doing some really basic home environments, and you don't want to run Proxmox. You want to get some hands-on with, an enterprise level virtualization software. Then you can also look into getting a free license for ESXi 7. And you can do that at the URL that I'm going to paste up here in the bar there. So it's myvmware.com, my.vmware.com/en/web/vmware/evalcenter ?p equals free-ESXi 7. So once you use that URL, you'll get prompted here to either log in or create an account. Yeah, there you go. So you can create a free account. You can download the software, and by using that particular URL, you will be qualified to get a free license for ESXi 7. Now, keep in mind that it is restricted, right? They're giving you the license for free, so you don't get the advanced stuff that you would get with a properly licensed, a paid license enterprise copy of the software. But again, this gives you the ability to run virtual machines. You do get a web UI to access your ESXi hosts. In fact, let's take a look at the ESXi host that is running and serving up my vCenter server. That is on, what was that address again? Yeah, here it is. It's not joined to the vCenter yet, so it doesn't have a proper SSL certificate on it. That's okay. We can use our little trick of this is unsafe. There we go. And when you access the UI for your ESXi host, you need to use the username root and whatever you've set as your root password. And there you go. So you can see the statistics for your server, the different IP addresses it has for the different services it's using, your CPU utilization, memory, storage. So what is this? This is just a single CPU Supermicro E308D. It does have, 4 cores in there with hyperthreading. So it does a decent job. It makes for a really nice home lab server because it does run ESXi very nicely. I do have some NFS storage attached to this right now through my QNAP, but I do have a local 1 terabyte SSD. You saw that earlier. And what else do I have? I have an NVMe in there as well. That's only, half a terabyte. For virtual machines, I do have a few running right now. Let's see here. Status. Okay, well, they're down here at the bottom. So I've got my domain controller. That's my my ZenTL server. My Unify controller there. I've got a little web server that I use for my backups. The Fedora machine, that's actually what we're logged into right now. The Win11 Pro, that's what you saw me join to the domain in my other video. And of course, here's the vCenter that we just now installed. So if we take a look here, we can look at the individual server information, IP address, the disks, various statistics over the last hour. And if you needed to get the console for a VM, you can just click on that window there. And see, another user has, oh yeah, I have a window open, and let me go ahead and close that one over there. It was off screen. Okay, so there we go. And then you can just, hit F2, customize system, do whatever you need to do on the inside. But we don't need to mess with that right now, so we'll just close that. But if you were installing a brand new OS, you could do that using the console here without having a monitor attached or anything. So, okay, we have our vCenter here up and running. It's ready to roll. So that wraps up the topics that I wanted to cover for this video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.